Today on Commander Replay, you better call a judge because there's about to be a crap ton of triggers in this 4 K&T game. Will K&T win the battle of the group hug? Find out next on Commander Replay. I just want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. The support from yesterday's video has been incredible, so thank you guys. We have a bunch of new Patreon supporters, so I'm just going to announce a couple people at a time. But we have David Crispino, D-Rock, and Isaac Vanna. You guys are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. Alright, welcome back everyone. We have a very special game today. This deck comes as voted on by Patreon supporters. We have 4 Kaneos and Tiro of Miletus. Take a look at our opening hand. I'm going to mulligan that. It's only 2 lands. I don't really love that. Even though there's probably going to be a lot of group hug going on, I don't know exactly how long it'll take for all that to get going. So I'd rather have just a less risky hand than that. This one looks significantly better with some mana ramp, some card draw, 3 lands, Whirly Tutor, Phyrexian Metamorph. So very happy about that mulligan. So today I am joined by 3 Patreon supporters. First up, we have Chaotix2075, unofficial co-host of the show, piloting K&T. Next up, we have Vermilion Nintendo, also piloting K&T. And finally, we have Rogaku, piloting K&T, as this is a 4 K&T kind of game. So that's going to bring it to our turn 1. There's a Veteran Explorer. Do we have green mana? We have a Breeding Pool. Alright, so play the Breeding Pool. Play the Veteran Explorer. I'm going to skip the Mana Crypt right here. We'll probably end up playing it next turn. No real reason to lay it down just yet. So everyone's likely going to be running a different build of K&T, and being that it's 4 colors, there are a lot of different ways to focus the K&T deck. Rogaku tends to play a very group hug style of K&T. The deck that I'm playing also has some group hug elements as well. So this game likely to get out of control pretty quickly, with 4 sets of group hug going on. Ooh, there's a Sharding Sphinx. Sweet. So yeah, our turn 2. Right here I'm going to lay down the Prairie Stream, and then I think we can wait one more turn on the Mana Crypt. No need to put ourselves at risk of losing some life unnecessarily. Here's a Scry Temple for Chaotix. So anyway, talking about what our deck is going to be doing specifically, this deck is interesting. It's sort of turned into a pile of cards that I've been wanting to mess around with for a long time. It features a lot of combos that haven't fit into other decks that I've been playing. There are some blue-red combos in here that I've been wanting to mess around with. One of them is Magmatic Force with Rite of Replication, is something I've been wanting to do for a long time. But we also have the Sharding Sphinx. I had a game a long time ago where I had 2 copies of Sharding Sphinx out, and it's really cool when you have multiple copies of it. So Rite of Replication on either of those 2. And we've got some other stuff as well, which I'll talk about more in a minute. So Selvala Explorer turn come into play, and that brings it back to our turn. Let us get... I think I'm going to play the Stomping Ground untapped. Play the Mana Crypt. Selvala will draw us cards. Trying to figure out if we need to pull from tomorrow yet. Yeah, I think we might pull from tomorrow on the end step of this turn, I think is what we're going to be doing. Even though we could save it to go really big later on, this game is likely to get out of control quickly, again with all the group hug stuff going on, so I think just getting a couple extra cards to look at right now, and then with things like Selvala and multiple K&T triggers, we'll draw into plenty more cards that way. Divine Presence for Chaotix. If a source would deal 4 or more damage to a permanent or player, that source deals 3 damage to that permanent or player instead. Wow, that's an interesting card. So that can, like, let's say someone was going Voltron and they were trying to do like a ton of damage. That damage would get reduced to 3. That's interesting. So it seems like it works really well against things that are trying to do a lot of big damage all at once. Not necessarily so great against like an army of tokens or something like that, but that's a pretty interesting card. So K&T into play for Vermilion Nintendo. They're going to get a land into play. I think we're going to drop the land into play and be able to draw 1 additional card with the pull from tomorrow. I think I like how that sounds. Ooh, we draw into an Impact Tremors. Nice. Opponent does use the Selvala Parlay ability. They get 2 green mana out of the deal. And going to bring their own K&T in. Opponent's going to play a Horn of Greed. Sweet. With that on the stack, we are going to play this Pull from Tomorrow, just so I don't forget. So X will be 4. Opponent's going to crack a fetch in response. So we draw 4 cards. We'll have to discard 1. We draw into a Horn of Greed, which is funny because opponent has a Horn of Greed on the stack. That'll be silly. So, I mean, I think that means we have to keep it, right? I don't know. Maybe we just get rid of the swords. Swords probably isn't going to be the most helpful because it'll probably be, like, just tons and tons of threats on board. and removing one probably isn't going to solve the issue. So yeah, I think we're fine to discard the swords right there, even though it's a really good card, and I always feel a little bit better when it's in my hand. I think just the potential for things to get wacky in this game is makes swords a little less valuable than it otherwise would be. Oh no, opponent's gonna play a Winds of Change. Our hand's gonna get so much worse. We're probably gonna draw all lands. Oh, this sucks. We just hit Warp World, which is part of our combo. That's cool. K&T end step trigger. Let's get the Mountain into play. We have multiple Joined Forces cards in our hand, so lots of mana ramp. I think this is gonna be a turn about mana ramping right here. We might wait on the collect. Yeah, opponents are all tapped out. Go Tails on the Mana Crypt flip on us. Brings back to our turn. Ooh, there's our Magmatic Force. Can we cast that? 4, 5, 6, 7. No, we're one short this turn. Sad face. Would need to, I guess we can go on the attack with the Veteran Explorer. We'll attack into Vermilion Nintendo. See if they block. They do not. Sad face. So let's play Cultivate. Let's get a forest and a... We need some mountains, I think. Get some mountains. Put the mountain into play tapped. Play the forest as our land per turn. We'll get to draw a card with the Horn of Greed. Sweet, we draw into another forest. Don't feel like I want to go for the Collective Voyage just yet. Do we Collective Voyage? Yeah, maybe we just Collective Voyage for X a bunch. So if we do that, that'll put a ton of lands into play for us. Then we just play Warp World, I guess? Or do we... Next turn will be on Warp World mana. How crazy are things going to get in the next turn cycle? They will get really crazy if we Collective Voyage this turn. That is a thing. Yeah, I think I'm going to go K&T right here, just for the lols. So K&T into play. End step K&T trigger, we will put a land into play. Get the Savannah. Anyway, so part of the other synergy... Ooh, that's a Heartbeat of Spring. All right, we're going to be able to do some wild stuff this turn. Unfortunately, we have 2 opponents' turns to go before that happens, and things could get pretty out of control. Jungle Wayfinder coming into play. Enters the battlefield. Each player may search their library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into their hand, then shuffle their library. That'll help us with all of these K&T triggers. Let's get our last mountain. Just make sure we have enough red mana to do all the stuff. Opponent's going to play land. Horn of Greed will trigger. Oath of Lieges, nice. I feel like we're probably not getting that Oath of Lieges trigger, but we'll see what happens. So anyway, the other combo in this deck is the Warp World and Great Aurora combo with a bunch of landfall cards, a bunch of token makers, where we can potentially just like Warp World into a mass of stuff that all triggers landfall a million times, and then we just Alpha Strike the table. Is what could happen. It's a deck that I've been thinking about for a while, and it's been on the back burner for a really long time, so I figured K&T Mass Group Hug might be a great place to try that one out. So that is the other main focus of this deck. The 2 focuses really come down to Magmatic Force with Rite of Replication, because I've been wanting to do that for so long. The Sharding Sphinx with Rite of Replication, and also this Warp World combo with all the landfall stuff. So to get this Warp World really going the way we want to get as many permanents as we can into play. And hopefully then when we Warp World, we get like, 20 or more permanents into play off of the Warp World, and hopefully we hit the ones we need, but, it's really just going to come down to luck at that point. Opponent plays a Mystical Tutor with the draw trigger on the stack. They reveal and explore. Okay, nothing too scary there. Opponent plays a Signet, then explores, getting all the lands. That being the case, we may actually get an Oath of Lieges trigger when it gets back to our turn. We'll see what happens. So K&T end step trigger, we will put a Forest into play. Oath of Lieges trigger for Rogaku. I faced Rogaku's K&T deck yesterday, and it has a lot of wheels in it, which is a little bit scary. They're kind of doing like a wheel, Smothering Tithe, mill sort of thing. There isn't like a really consistent win condition in the deck. They mostly just hug for the sake of hugging, but they can take some really long turns, which can be scary. Horn of Greed trigger for Rogaku. We draw into a Soul Ring off of the Parlay ability. Nice. There's a Smothering Tithe. Oh boy. Oh boy. Hopefully they don't have the wheel. There's a Howling Mine. Okay, I'm okay with that one. There's a Temple Bell. Nice, getting all the hug going. They will Temple Bell. They'll get some extra mana. They get some treasure tokens. We are able to pay for some of those treasure tokens. We draw into another land. We will pay for the Smothering Tithe. Don't want things to get too out of control right here. Oh, opponent's going to play a Warp World of their own. Well, let's see how this goes. Ooh, Smothering Tithe seems really good with Warp World. I forgot to add that one in. If we play a second game, I might make that change between rounds. Oh, we just hit a Rampaging Baloths. Things are going to get crazy. Oh, opponent hit a Gisela. Gisela, Seedborn Muse. Walking Archive. A bunch of things at wheel. Whoo, it's a little bit scary. Opponent's gonna Temple Bell again. Okay. We get a Mirari's Wake. Oh, boy. The Mana Flare is probably gone. No, Heartbeat's still in play. Heartbeat, a very large number of permanent... Oh, that's an Omniscience. Omniscience is scary. Maybe we attack with the Balos and then Warp World again to see if we see what we can get rid of. So people paying for these Smothering Tithe triggers. Don't want this turn to go on endlessly. So we get many Rampaging Baloth triggers. High likelihood that we can kill the other two K&T opponents. Oh, there's a Wheel of Fortune. Oh boy. Heartwood Storyteller is going to trigger. So we're going to lose our Warp World. Actually not going to draw with the Storyteller right there because the wheel's on the stack. Let's create many more Smothering Tithe triggers. I'm actually going to crack this fetch in response. Get a Taiga. Creates another Baloth. Wheel of Fortune time. Many Smothering Tithe triggers. We draw into, Elish Norn, Admonition Angel, Ogre Battle Driver. Oh my, Ogre Battle Driver and Omnath. Doubling season? Whew. That's some stuff. Start paying for these triggers. Rites of Flourishing coming into play. We get to draw with the Storyteller. There's a land. Lands are good. That means we can hit multiple Omnath triggers. We are out of mana for the Smothering Tithe. Horn of Greed trigger. Fractured Identity. Exile target non-land permanent. Each player other than that... Oh boy. Another Smothering Tithe trigger. We draw more cards off of the Storyteller. I didn't see what the target is here. Gonna exile the Smothering Tithe. Oh boy. So I think we all have Smothering Tithes now? So back to our turn. Walking Archive is going to trigger. It's going to get a... so we draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. There appears to be one counter on it. And yeah, we should be able to do some ridiculous stuff right here. As long as we don't get, like, Cyclonic Rift or something, that would be bad. Opponent tapping up some mana. Looks like Cyclonic Rift mana. Oh, alright, just putting counters on the Walking Archive. Alright, I'm okay with that. Opponent's going to activate the Temple Bell. Each player will get to draw a card. Hopefully we get a couple treasure tokens right here. Mana is... We need a lot of mana. Oh my god, we have Parallel Lives. If we could play all of the cards in our hand, we'd be due, like... I mean, just utter ridiculousness. We are not going to pay for the Smothering Tithe. Okay, we get one treasure... Two treasures. Alright, that's not too bad. Dictate of Krufix. Heartwood Storyteller triggers again. There's an Eternal Witness. Oh man, get Eternal Witness something? What would we Eternal Witness? Probably Warp World? Another round of Smothering Tithe triggers. Mirari's Wake would not necessarily be... is not the worst thing to get back either. We could triple up our mana. So we'd have 22 mana with just our lands. 23, 24, 25, 26. 26 total mana. That's 7 plus 5 is 12. Plus 4 more is 16. Plus 4 more is 20, so we can at least get those into play. Elish Norn might be a little bit tough. Admonition Angel might be a little bit tough. Although Elish Norn does remove a lot of blockers. In fact, Elish Norn removes a ton of blockers. We draw some more lands. If we get the Mirari's Wake back, we then have 27 mana. Oh my, there's a Dictate of Karamitra. We will draw with the Storyteller. There's another land. Things gonna be crazy. So now we should just be able to cast everything in our hand with the Dictate. And then if anyone survives for any reason, we should be able to get Warp World back at the end. That Omniscience is pretty scary. Smothering Tides are very scary. Dictate of Karamitra into play. There's a Kami of the Crescent Moon in play somewhere. Didn't even notice. Oh, Chaotix has that in play. There's a Mystical Tutor. Not going to pay for the Smothering Tithe. Dictate trigger on the stack. We will use the Mystical Tutor. I mean, we could go for Cyclonic Rift because that's funny, but I might actually go for the Rite of Replication and get back Magmatic Force. Not going to pay for the Heuristic Study. Another round of Smothering Tithe triggers. We are up to 6 treasure tokens off of the next round of draw. So right now we're looking at 40 mana if we don't end up with more treasure tokens for any reason. Oh no, the Rite of Replication is gonna be it's gonna be more than we have. I guess we could have just went Stormherd also. But this is the combo that I'm trying to make work, so... There's a Chromatic Lantern. Don't think that's going to be doing much for us at this juncture. Font of Mythos trigger on us. More Smothering Tithe triggers. Ooh, there's a Blinkmoth Urn in play too. We're going to get extra mana from that Blinkmoth Urn. Nice. So our main phase, we're going to get extra mana for the number of artifacts we control. I think that's 7 currently. All right, we end up with 8 mana. Oh man, I think we can do just about everything. Okay, we need to try to sequence everything properly. Let's start with this doubling season. Rhystic Study will trigger. Oh, Rhystic Study triggers Smothering Tithe a bunch of times. Oh my god. Oh, we're all going to time out before this game ends. So doubling season finally into play. Next, let's get the parallel lives into play. And now might be a point to actually pay for the Rhystic Study, because there's a lot of triggers going off right here. Nope, that's the Heartwood Storyteller still going to trigger Smothering Tithe a bunch more times. Oh boy. So we're generating more mana with each spell we cast. That's absurd. Parallel lives into play. Really just hope no one has Cyclonic Rift. Okay, next is the Ogre Battle Driver. Pay for the Rhystic Study. Next is Admonition Angel. Sacrifice a treasure. We're gonna put another counter on the Walking Archive. Okay. More counters on the Walking Archive. Ogre Battle Driver will trigger. Let's get Omnath. Pay for the Rhystic Study. Alright, so we have all of our landfall creatures into play. Let's get some lands in. That one comes in tap, sadly. Get this fetch land. That triggers 4 things. There's a Horn of Greed. Think I'm going to exile the Omniscience. That one's super scary. Ogre Battle Driver is going to trigger a bunch of times. Admonition Angel will exile the Omniscience. Not going to pay for the Smothering Tithe. Play another land. More landfall triggers. Oh, he drew another fetch land. I missed it. Whoops. Whoops. Maybe like the Seedborn Muse just in case. There's a Progenitor Mimic. So play the Eternal Witness. Ogre Battle Driver triggers, Eternal Witness triggers, get back the Magmatic Force. Play the Magmatic Force. Cast Rite of Replication kicked on the Magmatic Force. Another round of Smothering Tithe triggers. That creates, looks like 20 Magmatic Force triggers. Plus the original. And then we'll pass the turn. No attacks. I want to see all the Magmatic Force triggers go off. I know I'm hamming it a little bit, but I've been waiting so long to do this. I'm so excited. 20 Force triggers with the Gisela in play. Actually, 21. Opponent's gonna Path to Exile on our Admonition Angel. That's not ideal. Actually not gonna draw with the Storyteller because it's gonna trigger Smothering Tithe a million more times. Get a land into play. More triggers. Next is Fate. Take an extra turn after this one. Oh, that's interesting. Well, doesn't matter whose turn it is. Magmatic Force will still trigger. Chaotix is going to play a Vision Schemes. Each player draws 2 cards, continuing the massive amount of triggers that have been going all game. Another round of Smothering Tithe triggers. It's gonna be death by Smothering Tithe triggers. Opponent's gonna shoot our Smothering Tithe with a Nature's Claim. So finally our end step, we need to discard the hand size, get rid of that, get rid of some of the basics. So finally in upkeep, we get all the Magmatic Force triggers. So we put what should be lethal triggers on Rogaku and enough triggers on the Gisela. If something happens right here, we might be in some trouble. They will trigger the Temple Bell. So Gisela down. And I chose to go with Rogaku there because there's sort of an unmanageable number of triggers at this point, and I'm actually legitimately worried that MTGO might crash soon. We have to be approaching the token limit, which is 200, and there's just so many things going on. I'm really worried that the game log is going to crash. Also, yep, there it goes. So the game has crashed. Yep, thought that might happen. I mean, I think we had it. If we attack with all the things right there and don't try to use the magnetic force triggers, we're probably fine, but I really wanted to get the magnetic force thing going. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while. But we at least got one volley of triggers off of it, and that was super fun. So, Rite of Replication on Magmatic Force, a really fun combo. Sadly, the game crashed, but yep. The big combos in this deck are Warp World with these landfall creatures like Rampaging Baloths, Angry Omnath, Ameria Angel, and Retreat to Ameria. Those can all produce a bunch of tokens. And then we also have things like Doubling Season, Parallel Lives, etc. to double the tokens. We have Ogre Battle Driver, and in the Web of War, as well as Temur Ascendancy to give our creatures haste. So yeah, it's largely a Warp World combo deck, but also with the tokens, the Magmatic Force, Rite of Replication thing. So yeah, fun little game. Not something I'm necessarily looking to do again. It was really bad trying to manage and click through all the tokens, especially Smothering Tithe, but you can't auto those triggers. You have to click yes or no every time, and it's really time consuming to do that. So, yeah, interesting look at a 4K&T game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.